Wonderful, wonderful morning. Welcome. It is Outkick. It is the daily dose of Dockage, is how we should call it. Hey, Meg, I kind of like that. A daily dose of Dockage. You get 2 hours of me addressing the nation. Daggone it. And I tell you this, the nation is a beautiful one. It is. We got a beautiful day here in Indiana. It's a beautiful country. Hey, look, we got some slaps ruin it. We got some hypocrites losing their mind. But it is a beautiful, beautiful country, the greatest of all time. We're going to get into some stuff. Jonathan Hutton and I are going to discuss how freaking awful the AFC South is. If you don't know who Jonathan Hutton is, you'll want to listen to him. He is basically, along with Koharski and Withrow, the absolute voice of Nashville and Tennessee. And I don't know if you saw last night, and we'll get into this. My God. Woo! Baby, either the Bills are unbelievably good or the Titans absolutely stink, Colts style. I think it's a little bit of both. The great overcorrection continues in Indianapolis. Fans are now seeing through Chris Ballard. There's now seeing through Frank Reich as Jimmy Irsay no longer cares about what's going on with his football program. He cares about social media and being a social justice warrior and all that good stuff. Used to care about winning, doesn't anymore. More worried about whether his coach kneels or all that other stuff. But let's go to this. I don't know. I'm not saying. But I got a little problem with this humongous uproar about Kyler Murray getting hit. Let's show the video. Can we show the video of Kyler Murray? First, Kyler Murray, and then I'm going to talk about it, and then we're going to show the video of his coach. Can we show Kyler Murray going in the stands after a win against the Raiders? Now, I don't know, and there's an investigation going on, all right? I'm not big on players going into opposing stands or fans coming on the court or the field or the pitch. Yeah, I don't like either of them. If you're going to go jump around in the stands of an opposing team, you're kind of inviting trouble. No, in fact, you are inviting trouble. You're inviting the kind of trouble where an inadvertent hand, I don't know whether that guy slapped him. That's for investigators. It looked to me like it was a red hand and it got in his face, but Murray felt differently. Don't go into the stands of the opposing team if you're going to get so sensitive that when somebody comes back at you, you're going to want to fight. The fan, in my opinion, did everything wrong if, in fact, he or she did smack Murray. You can't do that. You shouldn't be able to do that in civilized society, although all you got to do is look daily at the New York Post, and we see guys with machetes. We see people climbing over McDonald's every single day. We see violence on our streets. The person should not have done that, but couldn't, and I won't be able to tell you whether or not the person did that on purpose, but don't go into the crowd of an opposing team. I always hear this from knucklehead players. Man, the field is my sanctuary. You know, a guy or gal runs onto the court, somebody tackles him. Look at Mike Curtis back in the 70s. Why'd you tackle him? He's in my space. It's my sanctuary. Shut up with the sanctuary crap. But the truth of the matter is, don't go into the opposing stands if you don't want something bad to happen. Sure, the guy should be caught. Sure, he shouldn't be allowed to go to game. Now, let's hear Cliff Kingsbury's response to all this, the coach. Here's his response.
The low life ever did. They arrest him and he gets fired and can never go to another game.
So is that what should happen when a violent act, any violent act by an NFL player occurs? Jason Whitlock was talking about this yesterday, and I got to tell you, that's a dangerous precedent right there. He should be fired. Okay. Should every NFL player or every college player that commits an act be fired, kicked off, never be allowed to go to a game? I mean, Joe Mixon is playing right now. Look up a video of what Joe Mixon did to a young lady. He's playing. I guarantee you the Woods is full of guys that Cliff Kingsbury protected when he was a college coach. The Woods is full of them. Made excuses for them. I got no problem with what Kingsbury's saying. I got no problem with it at all. But then let's extend that. Let's extend that to everybody. Let's extend that to Kingsbury's players. Let's extend that to college players. Let's extend that to pro players. Let's extend that everywhere. I mean, you don't jump into the stands of the Raiders after you beat the Raiders. Kind of simple. Particularly if you're going to whine about somebody allegedly hitting, slapping, whatever. I'm not saying the guy was right. But Kingsbury, fire him. He's a lowlife. I wonder how many lowlifes Kingsbury protected. Those are Kingsbury's words, not mine. I wonder how many guys got in trouble and Kingsbury went to the cops, made a deal. One of the reasons I was the most respected player or coach in Bowling Green history, I just got this from a cop the other day, to one of the ex-chief of police, is because when the cops made an arrest, I said, hey, if he did it, try to teach my players. You don't do stuff and then hope to get out. I guarantee you, coaching down in Texas, the Woods is full. So, hey, Kingsbury, next time one of your players does something, fire him. Hell, you got DeAndre Hopkins. He just violated our league policy. Fire him. I mean, if that's what we're going to do, fire him. Low life. Violated the law. I don't know. It's a dangerous precedent. It is. It's a very dangerous precedent. And I got to tell you, Jason Whitlock opened up my eyes to it. He did. When he was talking about it yesterday, he was talking about if that's what your stance is, then make your stance that across the board, Kingsbury. Be interesting. Not a chance he does, because most of these guys are chicken blank guys that understand the value of winning. They do. They understand winning over everything else. They understand, look, we act. They're like the Martha Vineyard people. The Martha Vineyard people, we're a sanctuary until it gets thrown in their face. College coaches are the same thing. We're all about discipline and honor. We're with the military until one of their star players gets in trouble, and then you should see the back Woods dealing to get that guy off so that he could play. Look at Joe Mixon. You'll see it. Joe Mixon hit a girl in like a Taco Bell or something, knocked her out. He's still playing. Fire him. He's a lowlife. Why is he playing? I don't know. Seems like he's playing. Seems like he's doing pretty good. And I can give you 100 of them probably in the NFL if I gave a rat's. You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's go this route. The opposite way. Mike Evans. Mike Evans was standing up for Tom Brady. Mike Evans with a little push. See, I get a headache over fake, tough rules. I do. I get a headache. In no way, shape, or form should anybody, and I mean anybody, have been suspended for anything. At some point, you got to understand football. At some point, you got to understand that these are dudes out there battling, and at some point, you got to understand manhood. I've said this many times. True story. I thought about killing myself back when I was in 8th grade. True story here. I got bullied. Not necessarily bullied. I got punched at the bell of recess. And I didn't punch the guy back. I felt like the biggest coward ever. Ever. I don't care what else happened to me. I felt like a coward. I was shamed. So, what did I do? I decided that was never going to happen again. I stayed by myself a lot. It actually helped me. By staying by myself and being withdrawn, all I did was shoot baskets in my driveway. Became a player that was so unathletic, but tough enough, good enough, that I played at Indiana. Shame is horrible to men. I don't care what you say. You can say I'm a Neanderthal, a thug, whatever. Honor, defending your own, is something inherent to men. And if you don't believe that, great. I totally believe it. And when you are challenged, you, have a decision to make. Flee or fight. Evans was challenged. Evans fought. Not really fought. Gave a guy a heck of a shove. Nobody should be suspended. I applaud Evans. I don't think you should go around fighting. I honestly don't. I haven't. I will make damn sure, and it's cost me, I will make damn sure I never feel like a coward again. Maybe that's 1930s thinking. Don't care. I understand it. Men are built this way. Men are built to fight back. Men are built to be courageous. And if they're not built that way, as apparently I wasn't, they learn to be that way, and it ain't a bad thing. Mike Evans defended his teammate. Who cares? Move along. Nothing to see here. 1 game suspension, my backside. It gives me gas. I'm telling you right now, I get it. We live in a world of effeminate men that are celebrated on social media, but that's not the real world. Absolutely is not. It's not the world that all of us live in. A small portion live in an effeminate male world. Most of us live in men being honorable, men being good guys, men having each other's backs, men being protective of women. That's the real world. I don't care what social media tells you. And Mike Evans being suspended is absolutely ridiculous. It is just window dressing for an NFL that's trying to appease as opposed to trying to understand the people that play in its league. Mike Evans did right. I don't care what anybody tells me. Speaking of right, a lot of people talking about my friend Urban Meyer, and they should. Urban Meyer should be the number 1 choice. He should be the number 1 candidate at Nebraska. He should be the number 1 candidate at Arizona State, and it shouldn't be close. If I'm the athletic director of those 2 schools, right now I have an over $90 million package available for Urban Meyer. Texas offered him that. There needs to be more than that. Maybe you'll get Urban Meyer. I don't see Urban leaving. I think Urban is a loyal dude to the folks at Fox. I think he appreciates them bringing him back. I've said this before. I think he loves his team. There with Brady Quinn and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and Rob Stone. I think he enjoys what he gets to do at the Big Ten Network on the weekends. I do. I think that he would not go back to coaching college football, particularly at one of those 2 places. Here's how you know, and I don't have the answer to this. Does Nebraska and does Arizona State have really good players? Like, do they have really good players? When Urban came to Bowling Green, I've said this before, had really good players. I remember sitting there talking to him, telling him about a quarterback named Josh Harris, who was really good, like stupid good. But the coach before him played him as like a running back or something. I don't know. But if they have really good players, then Urban might consider it. He followed a coach named McBride at Utah. Urban told me, really good players. You always want to follow Ron Zook. Ron Zook was an undisciplined mess that recruited his brains out. And that's at Florida. But the number 2 choice should be this guy right here, and it's not even close. If I was an athletic director, my 2 guys, Urban Meyer, Deion Sanders, period. Particularly at a school that can pay like a Nebraska or like an Arizona State. Deion Sanders, to me, the only difference between Deion Sanders and Urban is obvious. Urban was in it longer. Urban had great jobs. He turned mediocre jobs into all-time great jobs, and he won 3 national championships. He's one of the 2 or 3 greatest coaches of his generation. Maybe one of the 5 greatest of all time. Deion Sanders doesn't have the same luxury. He's at Jackson State. He's playing, and if you follow Deion Sanders at all, you know that they barely have water. I mean, it's a tragic deal. But you know what Deion Sanders does? He coaches his brains out. He recruits. He's involved in the policy of NCAA. He's vocal. And I personally, based on what I've seen, now I haven't met the man, but I'd love for my son to play for Deion Sanders. I'd love for my son to play for Urban Meyer. Deion Sanders is going to be, if he wants to be, a superstar college or professional coach. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Now, if you're a weak AD and you can't handle a big personality, well, that's on you. Because both Urban in a reserved way and Deion in a louder way are very big personalities. If there's something behind the scenes with Deion that I don't know about, then hey, I don't know about it. What I see, I would hire Deion Sanders today if I was Arizona State. I'd make the deal today and bring him in as soon as the season was over. I would get Deion Sanders so locked up that it would be over. Totally, completely over for anybody else. That's the reason you fire a coach right now. You're not all of a sudden going to get great attendance at Arizona State. You're not. You're not all of a sudden going to win at Nebraska with that guy. You're not. But you'll stay with the attendance because Nebraska fans are the best in the country. But if I want to win, I'm bringing Deion Sanders in after I talk to Urban Meyer. Then from there, you can go to all the other list of candidates. You know, every slap writer in the country has a list. We got to get Matt Campbell. No, Matt Campbell got to get you. If I'm Matt Campbell, hey, maybe I like my life there, but if I'm progressing as a coach, I want to get the Sam and Henry out of. I'm just saying. I'm hiring one of those two guys, man. Give me Neon Deion or whatever the hell he calls himself. This is going to be a sad story, and I hope it's not. I hope that this doesn't become what it looks to become. This kid here, Emoni Bates. Emoni Bates was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was like 17 or whatever. His father did what overbearing, ridiculous fathers do. And I can't even begin to tell you how this is. But somehow, somewhere, Emoni Bates' dad put together the Bates Academy, a school where this guy went. I don't get it. I'll never get it. But I understand in the modern world we live in, when you're 10 years old and your son has potential, you think your entire family is going to get generational wealth. And I got to tell you, I can't blame you. The money being thrown around today makes college obsolete for a high-end player. Nobody in the NBA gives a rat's whether or not Emoni Bates scores 20 points at Memphis or doesn't. What they want to see out of this guy is a discipline. They want to see out of this guy that they can trust him. Well, that trust yesterday, a couple felony counts of having a gun in his car. One of the guns had a scratched off serial number. Now, Emoni Bates' attorney is telling you, whoa, he just borrowed the car. That may be true. I have no idea. I'm hoping it is true. Personally, I hope it's really true. Personally, I don't want to see any kid. It's the reason I got into coaching was to help kids. I don't want to see any kid go through crap. I don't want to see any kid, because of a bad decision, get his entire future, particularly one as bright as this kid's, flushed down the toilet. So I hope what happens is this: they find out he did borrow a car. They find out he did not know there were guns in it. They find out that this was an honest mistake. But I got to tell you, it's always the same people. Emoni Bates goes to Memphis. He can't play. He's got to go home. Why does he got to go home? Well, you know, he sees his own therapist. Okay. He comes back, plays a game, it's always the same people. Like, I say it all the time. In Indianapolis, I guarantee you, people are like, it's always Dockich in the news. Stop. So I get it. It's always the same people. It is. I'm sorry. But this kid, whatever, hopefully this is a bit of a wake-up for this guy, and hopefully this guy, at the very minimum, asks questions of the people whom he's borrowing a car from. That seems reasonable. But I'm going to watch this story, and I'm hoping this kid is not involved in anything stupid that leads him at worst to prison, less than worse, kicked out of college, whatever. Look, it literally would take an act of God to get you kicked out of Eastern Michigan. The kid transferred to Eastern Michigan. He's from Ypsilanti. He's the biggest star in that area since Earl Boykins. He would have to do the Tom Osborne, Nebraska felony chart, I assume, to get kicked out of there. But look, gun charges, felonies, wiped off serial numbers, that's crazy. And generally, they don't arrest you if it's somebody else's car. That's easy to find out. We shall see. As my father used to say, we shall see what we shall see. Last night, Monday Night Football. I was fired up for it. I know you were too. Think about it. We got Monday night. We got 2 games. It was beautiful last night. The lovely Lee Ross and I went and played a little golf. Her birthday's coming up. Celebration, came home, took a shower, got in my pajamas. They're sexy too, baby. Anyway, poured a little bit of tequila. Just something nice to ease the knee pain. Sat back, started watching. You know what I saw? Crap. Let me take the first game. 41-7. The Bills over the Titans. Clay Travis said, hey, look, who should the Titans take as a number 1 pick? I said, hold on there, boss man. Don't forget about my beloved Colts. Don't forget about the Colts. The Colts are going to be in the running, at least at this point, for the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, I said this going into the season. 2 things about the Titans. We're going to talk to Jonathan Hutton coming up. 1, their schedule is much tougher than the Colts. Last year, the Colts had to go play the Bills at the Bills. They beat their you-know-what out of them. This year, the Colts don't have to. Much easier schedule. Chiefs coming in. Titans got to go to the Chiefs. Much tougher schedule for the Titans. However, both stink. 41-7. Now, the other thing that I said was Mike Vrabel, I was thinking maybe there'd be a crack in the concrete. You know, Malik Willis comes in. There's a little bit of a thing with Tannehill, doesn't want to lead him. And then we all thought here in Indy, what's going on with Derrick Henry? How long can he last? Well, Derrick Henry last night, not great. 13 carries for 25 yards. Now, again, the game was 7-7. Next thing you know, it was like 34-7, and it was over. Tannehill, no good. 11 for 20, 117 yards, threw a pick 6. Then he didn't get benched, really. They just took him out. They had to. I mean, you got to let Malik Willis play at some point. The other side of that was spectacular. And I'm going to say something later on in this show that's moronic. It's going to be absolutely stupid, moronic. You know it, I know it, and you'll hear it, and I'm going to take it back as soon as I say it. But I'm still not all bought in on the Bills. We'll get to that. 26 of 38. 317 yards, 4 touchdowns for Josh Allen. Will somebody please, anywhere, I don't care, guard Stephon Diggs. Anybody, please? Can anybody guard the best player on the other team? How does this happen week after week after week? Diggs, 12 catches, 148 yards. I mean, can somebody guard this guy? In basketball, you say many times, look, you're going to beat us, but he ain't beating us. He ain't beating us, ladies and gentlemen. You guys may beat us. The Bills may beat us, but that guy Diggs ain't beating us. I'm watching Diggs run wherever he wants. I'm watching Diggs wide open. I'm thinking to myself, time out. Isn't he the best that the other team has by far? Isn't he the best in the league? No, yes? I think he is. And he's running wide open wherever he wants to go, and Allen's hitting him like it's pitch and catch in a 7-on-7. I don't get the world that we live in. I don't get the NFL world. I gotta believe that being considered a great defensive coordinator in the NFL is akin to being considered the most handsome Dockage male. It sounds good, but there's not much there. And in the other game, yesterday I gave you 5 teams that looked awful in week 1 and really good in week 2. All right, I gave you 5, and it included the Packers. Because the Packers got belly-whomped by the Vikings last week. It wasn't close. I mean, it was not close. The Vikings defended Rodgers, made Rodgers look old. Okay, fast forward. Holy cow, and it was damn near the same score. I think the score was like 27-7 last week. The Vikings crushed the Pack. Well, 24-7 was yesterday, and I got to tell you, Jalen Hurts, my God. Jalen Hurts, now you got to remember about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is one of the all-time great dudes. And I said this at the time, and I will say this forever. Jalen Hurts to me, maybe not to you, is one of the all-time great guys. Jalen Hurts took his benching at halftime at Alabama to 2 in the national championship game like a stud. like an absolute stud. He did. He got beat out. Okay. He didn't bitch, whine, and moan. His dad is a coach. He was raised by a father. Remember Tony Dungy and my conversation about the importance of fathers? Jalen Hurts is one of my all-time favorites. So all Jalen Hurts does last night, 31 passes. He completes 26. 333 yards. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a third of 1,000. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts adds to it 57 yards rushing. 57 yards rushing on top of all that he's doing. Basically, he taught Arthur Murray dancing, makes his own clothes, a whiz in the kitchen, and all the girls like him. Jalen Hurts, wow. When you go through the pantheon of great quarterbacks in the NFL through week 2, where's he at? I mean, Tua, 6 touchdowns. He's got to be up there. Jalen Hurts, what he just did. Josh Allen, pretty good. Pretty good. Not bad. I don't know what to tell you, Minnesota. You came, you tried, you got belly whomped. I don't even know what that means. It may be something that's offensive. Again, I apologize, but that's what guys in my neighborhood used to say. We're going to belly whomp you. And we didn't even live in the country. Gary, Indiana is a lot of things. Maryville, Indiana, but it is not the country. So when you went to Junedale Little League over there in Gary and you played with your buddies and they start talking about belly whomping, yeah, I don't know. What the hell? I don't know. But anyway, long story short, so the Vikings looked good last week, complete crap this week. I don't know. I think the Bills looked really good against the Raiders and against the Rams in week 1. And I would argue looked even better in week 2. The Titans looked awful late in the game in week 1 and looked awful in week 2. And we're going to talk about this with Jonathan Hutton coming back. When we come back, Jonathan Hutton, you know what? Nobody knows or understands the Tennessee Titans better than Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow, and Paul Kuharski. They are the voice in the city of Nashville. They are the voices of the entire sports scene in Nashville. And mostly they are the common sense. They're the Dan Dockage times 3 of Nashville. We'll talk about the Titans. We'll talk about the AFC South. Man, oh man, how bad does the AFC South look now? And the other thing, I'm not so sure, speaking of the AFC South, that everybody should be saying that the Colts are a disappointment. This is who the Colts are early in the season. I go back to this. The Colts did an overcorrection. The Colts had a meanie, Ryan Grigson. He was mean. Media didn't like him. He just put his head down and did his job. So they hired the PR firm of Reich and Ballard. One guy, 52-34, with an AFC championship game, 16-0 in the division, broke an all-time record. The other guy hadn't won a division and is 41-42-1. Guess who's beloved in the city of Indianapolis? It ain't the guy that's 52-34. It's amazing stuff. The great overcorrection comes. And we are, since Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're on basically day 2.5 of the Frank Reich watch. And I think Frank Reich is going to survive at least till Sunday. If I don't talk about the Colts, I get a headache. I should talk about the Browns. That give me a further headache. All right, we're going to talk a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk to Jonathan Hutton about how bad the Titans are, about how bad the Colts are, about how bad the AFC South is when we come back.
Hey, it's Hutton from Outkick 360. If you couldn't catch the show yesterday, here's what you missed. Leslie Frazier, it's a different scheme than what we saw a week ago from Wink Martindale against this Titans offense. They are way more patient with the Buffalo defense. Frazier doesn't bring a lot of heat. They play a lot of two safety look, and they're going to sit back and allow the Titans to play into their defense more than forcing the issue. That's why. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's a spot they're going to miss Dontrell Hilliard tonight.
Yes.
I don't see Hassan Haskins as a guy that can attack it the same way.
I agree.
Or Julius Chestnut, who I would like to throw to more than Haskins based on what I've seen, but neither of them are like Hilliard. And after Hilliard's 2 touchdowns last week on 3 catches, I mean, he was a real danger they're missing him tonight. Let's not forget about that.
No, yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up because they schemed him open and got him with a slower linebacker multiple times in this game last week, Hilliard. I'm ready for that next level of it's time to see Austin Hooper match up in that same scenario. This is a big win for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions to go on the road and beat Auburn, a team that was a back-and-forth game and a solid game a year ago at your own in Happy Valley. Now you get a road win in the SEC, albeit an Auburn team that's struggling, that has awful quarterback play, that can't string together much of anything in consistent fashion that you would point to as solid football. And to go on the road and play your game, play your style, have Clifford play, and take down their best player. Tank Bigsby, non-factor against Penn State. I thought that signaled great things ahead for Penn State this season by getting the road win on the SEC.
Yeah, Bigsby, 9 carries, 39 yards. The rushing attack is what impressed me.
We're discussing the sports topics you care about from every angle. Catch me, Chad Withrow, and Paul Kuharsky each weekday afternoon, 3 to 6 Eastern, right here at Outkick.com. Stay with us on the Outkick Network.
You know, Jonathan Hutton, I told you this, Kuharsky, Hutton, and Withrow, the voices, if you're smart, the voices of Nashville. It's who you listen to when it comes to football and anything else. So I'm going to ask you this. 7-7 yesterday. The game's going along. What did you think at that point was going to happen?
I thought the Titans were going to cover. I didn't think the Titans were going to beat the Bills, but I didn't think they were going to get the barn doors blown off, Dan. And that's because of their identity and their style. You know, they play sound defensive football. They don't commit a lot of penalties, and they run the football well. They did none of that well last night, and it's the worst loss of the Vrabel era to this point. And it was bad. I mean, they went toe-to-toe last night, or tried to, with the AFC's best, the NFL's best. And they didn't come close to competing in that game. I mean, they started well, but they started well against the Giants too and still lost that game down.
You know, one of the things that I've always said about, and I played on a team like this, and it sucks, is when you're not quite either good enough or connected enough, you always start well and you play well for a while. And then the inevitable happens. You know what I mean? And it's not, I would assume that the Titans players aren't waiting for it to happen. You do that later in the year. That's why I asked you that question, because that is 2 straight games where they've started out, hey, let's go. And then next thing you know, fell apart.
Dan, I mean, by the way, how are you? You look like you're having a great time in studio. You're crushing it, by the way. You always get compliments to Outkick 360. I mean, don't at me is a big success too. I need to echo this for you. The Titans need to hear this echo as well, because there are plenty of NFL fans that in Nashville that are laughing at the Colts on Sunday in Jacksonville. India has been awful, as you've been predicting, but the Titans have serious issues of their own too. The Bills just they crushed them. 187 total yards of offense last night is all they could muster. And 75 of those yards came on the first possession. Going back to your discussion about how they start fast, they're committing penalties. They're turning the ball over. They can't run the football. Their offensive line is horrible. Management has whiffed on high draft selections up front. Taylor Lewan is carted off the field after the first snap last night. He was replaced by a guy that the Carolina Panthers were going to cut, but the Titans traded for. And they traded for him because their second-round pick from last season isn't worth being a backup offensive tackle at this point. And on the defensive line, they're short Harold Landry, Bud Dupree goes down. Their first and second round picks from last year don't play unless it's an absolute necessity. Their first round wide receiver this year is replacing a number one option who now plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a corner on Stephon Diggs last night, Dan, who didn't start every game at Rutgers last season. What's very bad is they've had one touchdown after their first drive of the game, and then they went and got points on their opening drive in week 1, and they've been outscored 62-14 over the last 6 quarters of football. It can get worse, but the start to this season has been awful because their identity is not something they're able to lean on, at least not yet. They averaged less than 3 yards per first down last night. The Bills averaged over 7 yards per first down. It's a window of this Tannehill, Henry, Lewan, Ben Jones, and others offensive era that now faces a steep uphill climb. And 0-2 is hard on any team, but it's especially hard on a team that has a very specific path to victory that the Titans have to accomplish week in and week out.
You know, it is interesting. I cannot remember, but I remember there was all kind of stuff, right? Did A.J. Brown have to go? Because I swear to God, Jonathan, quarterbacks and wide receivers, and I guess left tackles, those guys are worth their weight in gold, man. Did he have to go?
Well, I mean, at the time, the people that wanted to defend the Titans on this would tell you, oh, A.J. was going to fake a knee injury and not show up. I mean, did DK Metcalf have to go, or Terry McLaurin or Deebo Samuel have to go? No. Now, in San Francisco, Jimmy G restructures his contract, but at the time they were planning on moving away from the big deal. And I think I came on with you around that time frame where the Tannehill contract was hindering some of this. But I mean, we have seen look at the Rams roster. The Rams can make it work financially. You have to sacrifice at other positions. But right now, the position that is really lacking is a true wideout that they can go to, because Treylon Burks, while I think he has the chance to be a number one, is not close to that now. They don't treat him like that. Robert Woods at best is a number 2, because if he was a number 1, we'd see him get the football more. And they don't have any reliability in the passing game. In fact, they're awful when they throw the football. So and part of that's pass protection. Part of that is just they're better at running the football because they're built that way. So they didn't have to get rid of AJ Brown, but they did because they don't value wide receivers the same way that other teams do across the league.
Isn't it interesting? In Indy, we don't either, apparently. I mean, it's amazing. The general manager of the Colts said, well, you know what? We like our room, really. You got a rookie, you got Michael Pittman, and that's about it. But to your point earlier, if you don't value wide receivers before, you might want to value them after seeing what Stephon Diggs last night. You mentioned a corner from Rutgers. I just went on a bit of a rant saying I don't understand football, how the best wide receiver, by far, the best in the league, can just run around wide freaking open, like he's running in a field in 7-on-7.
He's the best wide receiver in football right now. Spoiler alert, I've got a column coming to Outkick tomorrow, and he's right now my leader for the Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to do this each week, each Wednesday morning at Outkick.com. And Diggs, to me, to start the season, 20 receptions, nearly 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. He owned the Titans secondary. Like you mentioned, they put multiple guys on him throughout the game, but the Titans don't match up. They're not known as a team that goes man-to-man and puts their best corner on the best player. They try to cover with help, slide a safety over. They'll do different things. And look, I think it's very difficult whenever you're having success with what you've been doing to get away from it. The Titans, had all these injuries. They had 91 players on the roster last year. They win 12 games and they get the number 1 seed. So, I understand where there is this brash defiance of, oh, who does A.J. Brown think he is, right? Because we're winning and we're going to continue to win with this style. But the NFL, if you give them time, coaches figure you out. And I would think the number one thing on the scout against the Bills would be, hey, we need to slow down Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. That's easier said than done. Jalen Ramsey couldn't do it. If Jalen Ramsey can't do it, I don't know if there's another defense in the NFL that can stop him for 4 quarters and do it with one player. The Titans couldn't stop him with 2 last night, and sometimes they were comfortable putting one guy on him, which is dumb.
The one thing, and this is what we're saying in Indy, the one thing you got, baby, is the AFC South, the gift that keeps on giving. And
Exactly.
That's, you know, somebody going to win it. Somebody is.
And, hey, I mean, at this point, Jacksonville should be saying that. You know, like everyone laughs at Jacksonville for leading the division right now. They have every reason to say, you know, we can, because we're in the AFC South. And they own the Colts, as you well know. The Titans, though, traditionally in this era that we're talking about, the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've been able to handle Jacksonville. There's a stretch run where Indy's got, let's see, they've got the Titans coming up in 2 weeks. They then play the Titans again 3 weeks later, and then in between that, they're playing Jacksonville. And that's the key stretch now for Indy to get back in it with their 0-1-1 start. And the Titans, over this next stretch of opponents, they get Indy. They have the Raiders this week, 0-2 versus 0-2. And then they'll have Indy again, and then Jacksonville. So I think we'll see the AFC South really take shape over the next 4 weeks. And there's no reason why we should exclude Jacksonville at this point in the discussion for the division.
I watched the Titans, I watched the Texans, I watched the Colts, I watched Jacksonville, and at least what I've seen out of Jacksonville, they've played the best football. I mean, the game the other day with the Colts, I mean, Colts have been shut out 3 times since 2003, all 3 by Jacksonville. So to your point, but I thought Jacksonville, look, Rick Venturi is a friend, 35 years as a defensive coach / coordinator in the NFL, and he said before the season, he goes, look, Texans are going to be better, but Jacksonville's got guys, real guys. And if you put it together with some protection for Lawrence, I don't know. He looked damn good against the Colts.
He should be ascending, Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, he's the second coming of Andrew Luck, and he was hyped more than Andrew Luck because we heard about Trevor Lawrence when he was a sophomore in high school all the way through. And he's playing for national championships in college football. So he's been at the top of the pedestal. He should be ascending now into prime time of where his career will take off. He's got Christian Kirk, who many mocked with the signing. I'm raising my hand here on that with the money they gave him. He's been excellent to start the season. You know, God forbid a free agent wide receiver come in and actually make plays early in a season. Christian Kirk's doing it. Travis Etienne has been playing well. They're using him multiple ways. He was out last year, so coming off injury, and he's producing. Again, things we don't see in Indianapolis or Tennessee. Evan Ingram has been a nice addition at tight end / wide receiver and how they use him. Defensively, they're flying around and making plays. Josh Allen, the pass rusher in Jacksonville, is hitting the quarterback and disrupting plays. You have Devin Lloyd, who looks like a solid NFL player. And again, I'll point out where you started this. They're playing in the AFC South. They could be the surprise team this year just based on the fact that the war of attrition plays a factor in injuries. And they'll be facing some teams that are either extremely one-dimensional or not very good in how I would describe every team right now in the division in some way.
Let me ask you, is this a function of just the game? What's going on with Derrick Henry?
It's a great question. Look, let's start here. What we're seeing from him is not to me, it's more than just a slow start, but traditionally he's known for very slow starts. Over the last 4 years, in the month of September, I take that back. Let me go back just 1 year. I'll go back to his best year. His best year was 2020 when he rushed for 2,000 yards, and the Titans passed for like nearly 4,000, maybe a bit more than that in total. In September of that year, he had 82 carries for 319 yards on his way to 2,000. And then they gradually tick up to where in November he has like nearly 600 yards rushing. In December, he has 530 yards rushing. But he's their path to victory. They have no true threats at wide receiver. No one scares the opposing defenses except their running back, and I'm including their quarterback in that. And he's always produced some type of problem that the defense can't solve over the course of a game. But in the last two matchups, and really the last three, because he came back against Cincinnati and was kind of the same way, the defense has solved that puzzle. They've solved that riddle, and then there's no plan B or 1B option in the passing game to pick up this offense. So they have to lean on that. Since the start of the 2019 season, Henry leads the NFL in rushing yards after Halloween, which is November, December, January. The Titans, to be a factor after Halloween this year, need him to be in that category now and next month, because he missed half a season last year. He still leads the NFL in rushing yards after Halloween over that time span, and he's sixth in carries over that same time frame, and he missed 9 games last year. Then they've got to have him. And right now it seems like there's a bit of hesitancy in some cases, and in other cases he's getting swarmed last night as Tannehill's handing him the football. So it's a bit of everything. And, PK mentioned yesterday on the show from Buffalo, he thinks part of that is due to the fact that he doesn't play very much in the preseason. And I'm taking that to mean he doesn't play very much at all in the preseason, not just games. It's very rare to see him in 11-on-11 during joint practice work or team play whenever they put the pads on. He's normally running in a sand pit. And I think, the passing games work so much during the off season that you can get into a rhythm early, and the rules are set up for you that way. I think the mesh between new look offensive line, different pieces there, and how you want things to fit and be in sync, it's a bit out of whack right now for the Titans. And I mean, that's by their own doing in many instances, because they don't want to practice him. They want to play him and make sure he's healthy.
Last thing, and I'll let you go, because people, Malik Willis came in. I don't know nothing, but I don't see that guy as changing the fortunes of the Titans. I don't see that.
Not yet.
You?
Not yet. He's not close.
Yeah.
He's not close. He was he was in against backups last night, and he fumbled away a football, and I think he completed one pass. I mean, he's drinking out of a fire hose right now, right? Like it's all coming very fast. I do think, and I don't want to knock him completely, it's not like he's been horrible, but he's not starter. He's not the Tennessee Titans' future starter yet either. Like there's a balance between how I would describe the good and the bad. I would say he has really developed from the first time I saw him in May at an OTA to the end of training camp. And that progression needs to continue as he is the backup to Tannehill, and they're not close to putting him in or thinking that in some way there is a reason to flip the quarterback if it doesn't improve over the next couple of weeks. It's far from that, at least in my opinion. The national media loves him, and I get it. There's a lot of flash there from college. He has a very strong arm. He can let it rip, but in many cases he's not pulling the trigger. He's taking off and running at first glance. And that's not how you win in this league, not with the speed on defense that is every bit as fast as he is. That's what he's got to get down, and that's where he developed quite a bit during the offseason. But again, he's a backup quarterback right now, and that's me putting it at the best level I can to this point. He needs a year, maybe more. He's a third-round pick for a reason, and Kenny Pickett's not even playing yet, so give that time too.
Right. That, as soon as a guy gets in the game, right? Oh, this is our guy. And I'm like, I don't know about that, man. The more I watched him, the more I'm like, yeah. Hey, last thing. Jimmy G gets a rebirth. Tua all of a sudden is Joe Montana. How about that? How about those two guys?
Amazing story in San Francisco. This sounds crazy. Whenever the injury happened, on Sunday, Dan, and Garoppolo came in. First half, he threw for over 100 yards, and it didn't look like he missed a beat. You know, Garoppolo's not a great quarterback, but I think he's 32-17 in his time with Shanahan in San Francisco. He wins games, and he's a starting quarterback for a team that wins games. We were discussing when Trey Lance, you know, looked awful against Chicago. Man, they may play Jimmy G before there's any injury. That's how bad it looked. And the injury happens, and I think to myself, the 49ers just got better. The 49ers are now in contention for the NFC West as you watch this team go, because they have the thoroughbreds. Garoppolo's on a good shelf level, a winning quarterback style level. Opposite that, you've got Nick Bosa, who's contending for Defensive Player of the Year. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle needs to get healthy, but when he's there, you can pair him with Ayuk, and they can do some things in the passing game. Juwan Jennings is a possession guy that is as physical of a wide receiver in the league. They're good, and they're a better team with Jimmy G right now. That's a blessing in disguise. I don't wish injury on anyone, but Trey Lance didn't look like he was ready to start. And this may end up benefiting San Francisco, despite how things turned out this offseason, where they didn't even want him with the team during team meetings during training camp or on the practice field during training camp. It's bizarre. And then Tua, what a game. 6 touchdown passes. He ties a single game record for the Miami Dolphins with Dan Marino and Bob Greasy as they storm back. 28 points total is what they scored to win the game in that fourth quarter. Fantastic performance. The win put the rest of the NFL on notice, because the Dolphins look like the real deal. They have the talent around Tua, and it looks like Tua is the real deal with the talent around him. The proof came in the fourth quarter, where he was 13 of 17, 200 yards passing, and 4 touchdowns. That's a moment that you look back on in that comeback year that the Dolphins have set themselves up for with the 2-0 start. And now they're the talk of the NFL this week, Dan, and for good reason, because it all builds up to a matchup against Buffalo on Sunday, 2-0 against 2-0. Meanwhile, in Nashville this Sunday, 0-2 against 0-2 with the Titans and the Raiders. And the Colts have the Chiefs. Let me get your take on this. The Colts have the Chiefs this week, and then they visit Nashville. If the Colts lose against the Chiefs, and I'm a believer of it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. So let's say the Chiefs come in and do what the Chiefs can do, and the offense again looks really bad. Is Frank Reich coaching for his job in Nashville in week 4?
Nashville, the Titans come to the Colts that day on the 2nd.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
In Indy. Back-to-back home games now.
I would, Jonathan, there are a lot of people, myself included, and I don't know how closely people follow this, but the season was over last year, and for the first time in Jimmy Irsay's reign as the owner, he called in the general manager and the coach immediately after the Jacksonville game last year. The thought was he gave him a reprieve, and then Jimmy Irsay, and you'll understand this, he made all these videos by planes about we're all in, we're going to blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, they lose to the same team, and they lose worse. Jonathan, there are a lot of people, myself included, that were on, is Frank Reich going to be done by Sunday night? I think if they get blasted at home this week, and I don't think they will. I think the Colts are one of those teams that plays to its level of competition. We saw it last year in San Francisco. We saw it last year against the Buffalo Bills. I think if they get blasted this week, I think Frank's got a problem. I think he may be out. John Fox or Gus Bradley. I think he's coaching for it this week. I'm not saying, you just mentioned there's different ways to lose, right? I mean, if you they got shut out, shut out by a team that, maybe they're great. Maybe they're 16-1, the Jags, and the shutout doesn't look so bad. But from where I sit right now, Jonathan, I'm not sure he's not coaching for his job this week.
Okay. Yeah, and I bring it up because October 2nd is that first game. You're right, it's in Indy. And if not by then, October 23rd is the second matchup against the Titans.
Yeah.
And I bring up the Titans for this discussion because you're right. Irsay has been discussing this all off season by plane or by song, one of the two. And he's always staring in a mirror when he's doing it, recording himself, when he can hit the button and record himself in a selfie. But he's being very outspoken about the way they finished and the team that they're chasing, which is Tennessee. And with the two games coming up in the month of October and the start that the Colts had last year, the 0-3 start, and they finished the season as they started, and they've started this season as they finished, if that makes sense. The team that they're measured up against by the owner's own admission plays them twice, and they're also grasping for what looks to be either a bad division title, which they shouldn't apologize for if they can get it, or one of the final wild card spots. It's a fascinating storyline to a month that I didn't even consider whenever we were previewing the season 4 or 5 months ago. And, now you've got Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill trying to get anything going in a passing game that both offenses are struggling just to move the football.
You've heard me say this, and you're exactly right. You've heard me say this. The Indy media, there is none softer, particularly on Frank and on Chris Ballard. I mean, they love these guys, but they've turned
not
on.
This week.
The print media is, first time I've seen it in 5 years. I mean, we're 40. Chris Ballard is 41, 42, and 1. That's what he is. I mean, what do they say the record is? What it says it is. Let me put it to you this way. Jimmy Irsay is not the guy. His dad, now everybody tells me that his dad would have gotten rid of these guys at the end of last year, okay? Jimmy Irsay is not that guy. But you know what? If you're going to see a lot of red here in Lucas Oil, you're going to see Patrick Mahomes. If this goes south and you have a bad afternoon in terms of booing, people walking out, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Let's put it that way. What do you got on the show today, big boy?
Hey, real quick, just to tie this up. Frank Reich needs a Cliff Kingsbury type game where outlook was very, foggy at best, right? In Vegas. And then they have a second half and win in overtime. And now all of a sudden, at least for a week, they've quieted the negativity in Arizona. They need that this week against the Chiefs. Today we've got Koharski back from Buffalo. He was there for that blowout last night. I'm sure he hated life this morning at 5:30 catching his flight. So that means he's coming in pissed off for greatness, which is always awesome. John McClain, he weighs in on what was an outstanding week 2 for the NFL. And then we begin to set the table for Tennessee and Florida this Saturday in Knoxville. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's one of my favorite all-time games, going back to the 90s. I remember, couldn't wait to get home, get a bunch of popcorn, and watch that game. I'm watching that one as well. Thanks, my friend. Thanks, Jonathan.
And you're the best, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Look, Outkick 360, 3 Eastern. I'm telling you, you'll love it. You will absolutely love what they have going on every day. Every day they bring it. Every day it's the best in football talk. I promise you it is. All right. When we come back, don't sleep. I got 5 teams across college football and the NFL. Don't sleep on. Do not sleep on. Also, the top 5 Biden price hikes during this, I guess, inflation. I don't know. What is it? I don't know. Is it inflation? Is it not? What a clown. We'll be right back.
Don't miss a thing and stay up to date with all things Tommy Lahren is Fearless by following Outkick on Instagram and Twitter. But if you did miss something, don't worry. We've got you covered. Now, Democrats living their best life with the mantra of for me, but not for thee is standard Democrat stuff. But when you take that, you add taxpayer dollar suckage plus the race card, well, you get New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell, who's refusing to repay money spent on luxury first-class international business trips. Her upgrades alone total over $30,000. What business the mayor of New Orleans has in France and Switzerland is beyond me, but that's not the most egregious part of this whole thing. Wait until you hear her rationale. She said, and I quote, "My travel accommodations are a matter of safety, not of luxury. As all women know, our health and safety are often disregarded and we are left to navigate alone. As the mother of a young child whom I live for, I'm going to protect myself by any reasonable means in order to ensure I am there to see her grow into a strong woman I am raising her to be. Anyone who wants to question how I protect myself just doesn't understand the world black women walk in. There you have it. She can't travel economy class, which is required by her city's policy because black women are not safe in coach. Jimmy, I'm going to start with this one right at the gate. All right, you're going to like this one. A Taiwanese nursing home has issued an apology for hiring a stripper to entertain residents at a veterans nursing home. Now, the stripper spent 15 minutes performing for the veterans who were in the facility dealing with dementia and other disabilities. But in their apology, the party planners said they were just a little bit overzealous and wanted residents to feel the stripper's enthusiasm and energy. What do you think? Did this deserve an apology?
It's weird. If you hire a stripper for a kindergarten kid, the Democrats applaud it. But if you hire a stripper for an old veteran, this doesn't work out.
Tune in Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Outkick.com when I'll be joined by Betsy DeVos, the former United States Secretary of Education under President Trump.
Oh, that was fun. I love talking to the Outkick 360 guys, and I love listening to the Outkick 360 guys. Every Tuesday we do top fives, and on our top fives can be anything. I mean, it doesn't really matter. They can be anything from sports to parents to football games to hopscotch. I mean, you name it, we can do it. Let me go this week. I got two different top fives as I scratch my belly. Top five, don't sleep on teams. Don't sleep on these teams. Don't sleep on them. This is college and the NFL, one of which I've told you about, and I've told you about, and I've told you about. All right, let's unveil number five. The Jacksonville Jaguars, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, do not sleep on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's the deal, and I said this earlier with Jonathan. Weapons. People did make fun of Christian Kirk, right? Oh, you paid him too much. Let me ask you NFL fans a question. Is it your money? Do you pay? How much would the Colts or the Titans, like to have a guy that can get open that you can target to make 6 to 8 catches every single night out? If I'm the Colts, I don't have anybody. I guess they can go to Michael Pittman, but Michael Pittman would get 6 catches for 40 yards. Kirk is a guy people made fun of. I don't get it. Travis Etienne is a guy that when they drafted him late in the first round, Urban and I were talking. We're like, why wouldn't you? Look at the NFL. A dual threat Deebo Samuels type guy. Are you insane? Look, Trevor Lawrence looked really good. James Robinson is quick enough to get through holes on the defensive side. Travion Walker, wow. Is he a stud that demands double teams? Josh Allen, what? Look, they revamped their line. Shreve came in. They drafted Fortner, the center. I got to tell you, they kind of dropped the mic in the offseason. And, oh, by the way, ultimately, and this is what always happens, and nobody will give him credit for this, but Urban Meyer establishing a bit of a culture, getting rid of people that were used to losing, that's really important, by the way. People lost their mind when they said, well, this guy is going to he's been there 30 years. Yeah, he's seen 30 years of losing. He's got to go. Well, no, he's got to go. No, he's got to go. I'm sorry, he got to go. You cannot keep people that are used to losing around. That's the first rule in coaching. Evaluate who has been there, Why have they been there, and what are they about? And then if they're not about the right things, you get rid of them. Urban did. Then, I don't know if you saw the broadcast, but right next door, they're building a beautiful practice facility. They're moving the Jaguars into the 21st century. Yeah. I had a friend of mine with the Colts tell me, he was with the Colts on the trip. He said, I got to tell you, last year felt like an anomaly. Felt like, all right, bad game, Colts down in Jacksonville, last game of the year. This year it felt like the organization of the Jaguars had bypassed, think about that, bypassed the Colts. Are you insane? How can this be? Well, it doesn't take long because the NFL is set up this way. The NFL is set up to where you can have uber success quickly if you make the right draft choices. And the number one pick, like the Colts back with Andrew Luck, it happened with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. This is going to get interesting. I know we all say the AFC South stinks, and I'll be driving that train. I've watched all the games. My fat, you know what, has watched every minute of the Colts, damn near every minute of every game. And the AFC South isn't great, but I'll tell you this, the Titans look daggone good all over against the Colts. Colts, remember, 7 Pro Bowlers. Yeah, Titans look more talented. Just saying. Syracuse football, Aaron. Syracuse football. I dropped the mic. I do. Syracuse football, I told you last week, one of the best games, if not the best game of the weekend was going to be Syracuse. And did you watch? Holy cow. My peeps, Jared, he was there screaming and yelling. The crowd was nuts. Schrader dropped it in the corner of the end zone. Boom. Toes tapping. Purdue gets beat. My man Aiden O'Connell threw a pick 6, but he came back, led him back from 10 down to take the lead. And in Purdue, we say it in Indiana all the time, Purdue went all Purdue. Purdue gonna Purdue like I'm gonna fart. It's just going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, it's just going to happen. See St. Peter's, see Arkansas Little Rock, see the last second shot against Virginia. It don't matter. Purdue going to Purdue. And Purdue. Somehow, some idiot gets a 15-yard penalty in the last drive. Somehow, some other guy lets the ball go over his head. Let me give you an axiom in sports that nobody told me about. I gave this some thought, and it comes true. Nowhere in sports is it good for the defender to get the ball or for a ball to go over the head of that defender. A ball over the head of a defender in every sport is bad. Now, you're going to say tennis. Well, maybe it goes out. You're right. But you're not a defender in tennis. You don't have offense and defense in tennis, so stop it. Defensive secondary, ball over my head, no good. Outfielder, ball over my head, no good. Defender in soccer, ball over my head, no good. Hockey, puck past me, no good. Don't let the ball go over your head as a defender, ever. What are you doing? It was a heck of a game, and do not sleep. Let's look at it. Virginia comes in. Now, if you have a letdown, then you're a horse bleep program if you're Syracuse. I'd hire Dino Babers tomorrow, by the way. Wagner. So you're looking at 5-0. When a ranked North Carolina State team, who's not great, comes into the Dome, that's possibly 6-0. 3-0 right now, 4, 5, 6 when they go to Clemson. Then they got Notre Dame in. Okay, they'll probably get beat by Clemson. 6-1 when Notre Dame comes into the Dome. And oh, by the way, don't look now, but Notre Dame stinks. Yeah, they do. Notre Dame, no good. Notre Dame, not great, as we always say. So don't sleep on the Cuse at all. And Dino Babers, if you saw the interview after the Purdue game, I'm a big Dino Babers fan. Like, I think I would hire, if Dino Babers had enough, won enough this, I'd hire Dino Babers anywhere. I would. Plays fast, great guy, seems to love his players. His players love here. He's an honest guy. He recruits well. Oh, what's not to like about Dino Babers? I really like him. And if I like him, that means he's good people. Ha! All right, next, Penn State football. Nobody catches more grief than James Franklin. And I don't get it. James Franklin won 9 games a couple different times at Vanderbilt. Now look, the new coach at Vanderbilt, I'm all in on. I want Vanderbilt to get great. My daughter teaches school down in Nashville. I want to go to a Vandy big-time SEC game. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, although they did come back, Vanderbilt, and beat Northern Illinois. But everybody's all over Penn State and James Franklin. Every year, people give James Franklin a bunch of grief. Look, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know this. They're undefeated. They got Central Michigan and Northwestern, and then they got to go to Michigan. Now, that's a monster game. I imagine both teams will be undefeated. Then Minnesota comes in. Minnesota looks pretty good, and then they got Ohio State at home. And you know it's going to be a whiteout. You know it's going to be an ABC game. You know it's going to be an unbelievable, or a Fox game, night game. You know it's going to be an unbelievable night. Urban Meyer once told me that the toughest place he ever had to play was a night game at Penn State. But James Franklin just gets crushed. I don't know. So James Franklin said way back, look, I like to hire coaches that have pretty wives because I know they can recruit. That made everybody lose their mind. It didn't make me lose my mind. I don't know. Maybe we're all supposed to talk like that. Whatever. Dude was just being honest. I ain't mad at him. Why you be mad at James Franklin all the time? All the dude does is win. Gonna get a real opportunity. Don't sleep on him. Don't think because James Franklin and you're mad at him all the time. Sean Clifford's 110 years old, and I don't know if you remember back week 1 at Purdue, Fox night game, great atmosphere in Ross-Age Stadium. It looked like Purdue was going to win the game, and all of a sudden Sean Clifford went whap, 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 whap. Don't sleep on Penn State. And if you are, wake the hell up. Put some smelling salts in there and wake the hell up. Do not sleep on this bad boy. Don't even think about sleeping on this guy. And that is USC to get in the Final Four of the college football playoff. Lincoln Riley's crew, there's some bad boys there. Lincoln Riley's crew is fast. Lincoln Riley's crew, Addison, the wide receiver, terrific. The quarterback, unbelievable, Caleb Williams. And make no mistake, what Lincoln Riley did in the transfer portal was as good as anybody. I'm telling you, as good as anybody. And I want to make sure that I have this right, because Lincoln Riley on the 26th of freaking November plays Notre Dame at home. The only other game that if these players are smart and these players understand what's currently ahead of them and will continue to be ahead of them, the only thing that I can tell you is at Utah could be a problem. But you know what? You're playing in a major conference. Shouldn't at least one game be a problem? Shouldn't at least, a couple games? But let me go through it here. Notre Dame, last game of the year, I don't know what's going to happen. Notre Dame may quit by the end of the year. Right now, they have scored 152 points. That's right. That's what USC has scored. Let me go through their schedule with you. Arizona State without a coach this week. Washington State, at Utah, at Arizona. Okay. Cal and Colorado. Colorado's the worst team in football. At UCLA, which basically means nothing. And then Notre Dame. This team has 2 difficult games, maybe 3. Maybe. I would think anyway, that at Utah is going to be a tough game. But if you're any good, you win that game. It's like, okay, is Penn State any good? They go to Michigan and win that game. You got to play somebody, right? All right. And then at Arizona, again, same thing. A little bit different level. I think Utah's probably better. And then, I don't know, do you consider Notre Dame really good? Did you see what happened to Marshall? Marshall went into the Falcon House. That's right. They went into Bowling Green and got whooped. That's right. You don't come in. I saw their staff at dinner, wished them good luck. You can't handle success, huh, Marshall? You beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame? Couldn't handle success. That's what's on tap here. Can USC handle the week-by-week success? I don't know. All right, this one's stupid. All right, but we're going to find out this week. Don't sleep on this. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying this. But don't sleep on Tua and the Miami Dolphins being the best in the freaking NAFC East. Yes, I know. Don't give me a headache about it. I know the Bills are there. I know the Bills are fantastic. I know the Bills are the team to beat. But I got to tell you something. I watched Miami win like the other day where you're down. And remember this. Remember, it's not like they beat a team that doesn't have culture in the Ravens. That was a monster win. That was a no-joke win. You go into the Ravens, a team of immense defensive culture. You get down. You drop 42 on them. Woo! So now what happens? You forget it because Buffalo's coming to town. Buffalo, then at Cincinnati. But really, as I go through this, there is an incredibly difficult 3-game stretch that seems a bit unfair. At San Francisco, at the Chargers, and at Buffalo. That's an unfair stretch. That's the stretch that's going to hinder Tua ultimately from being the AFC East champs. But don't sleep on them. Don't be surprised unless Buffalo is legitimately insanely good, which they look like to this point. There will be a regression to the mean by Buffalo at some point. NFL coaches, are too good. NFL players are too prideful. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but don't sleep on it. Don't lessen how much that win at that place in that way helped Miami. And oh, by the way, we just talked, did we not, to Jonathan Hutton about wide receivers and the value of wide receivers. We've seen it with both the Titans and the Colts. Well, Waddle and Hill, are you kidding me? Waddle and Hill can break open a game, and in Waddle's case the other day, win the game for you. Same thing. How does that guy get open around the goal line? I don't know. I know NFL coaches are paid an absolute boatload. Anyway, don't sleep on that one. Crush me if you would like. That's top 5 list number 1. Here is top 5 list number 2, and this one is absolutely sickening. Do you remember I told you that we as Americans paid more money in tax than we spent on ourselves? That doesn't seem right to me. That does not seem right to me. Like, that seems horrible to me. This is the Joe Biden world that we're living in. The Joe Biden world that we're living in is awful. I mean, we live in the greatest country ever. We have the greatest people of any country ever. But the truth of the matter is, we are currently living in a world where, frankly, Joe Biden and his attempt to redirect America is failing miserably, and you got to go vote these people out. So here are the top 5 expenditures due to Biden inflation. Number 5, and this is in no particular order because this is so sad and it's so unnecessary that, I don't know, it doesn't have to be. But here are the top 5. Milk is up 17%. Milk, up 17%. Explain that one to me, will you? You know, why is it up? Well, it's up for a lot of reasons, and immediately people are going to say, well, supply chain issues. No, Biden issues. Biden issues. I mean, that's all I can give you. All I can give you is Biden issues. You know, inflation hit 8.6%. And this guy keeps, it's a little bit of, why don't we talk about greatness? Why are we talking about just a little bit of well, we just need a little bit of room. It's really frustrating. It's really, 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 really frustrating that that's the level that this guy says, just a little bit of breathing room. Why do we want a little bit of breathing room? Why don't we make this the greatest economy ever? And while he says this, bread is up 16%. That's right. Milk is up 17%. So what's next? Well, bread is up 16%. So, all these little freaking D-bag lifetime politicians always go like this, don't they? And they talk about the American people. And they talk about family. And they talk about the struggle. And they talk, blah, 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 blah. Please explain to me, anybody, anytime, anywhere, please explain to me how the essentials, okay, are up that much. 16%'s a lot. 16% affects everybody's budget. 16% isn't just, hey, look, we're up 16%, you don't have to live it. No, you got to live it every day. You got to live it every single day. And you can all you got to do is go to Google and you'll see people are just losing their minds over this. All the while, these idiots in Washington last week celebrated their Inflation Reduction Act. What? You what? You're celebrating? Let me give you a more egregious one. Eggs, up 40%. Think about this. Milk, bread, and eggs. Eggs, up 40%. 40%. And I look at this and I say to myself, why are we addressing this? Why are we just okay with this? Why aren't we upset about this? Why don't we look at this? Last July, actually, it's doubled in price. Last July, eggs were $1.64. All right? This July, eggs are $2.94. Now, I got to tell you, what are we doing? They're still up 40% right now. Midwest large eggs closed at $2.16 a dozen. That's down 37% from where they were a week before, but still up 40%. Is this amazing? And these guys, these ladies and gentlemen that have been in Congress for so long that now get to run our country, don't address any of this. They celebrate. See, I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. I've never been one that listens to people say what they did. I actually pay attention. And you can say to me, hey, look, we're doing great. Inflation has only gone up 0.1%. What? That's what these guys want you to believe. And this is why I joined Outkick. I didn't join Outkick to just talk about the Colts and the Titans. I joined Outkick to have a voice in this. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it absolutely stunning that this is the world that we're living in? And look, I understand. When you elect a guy like Biden, it's the same as electing a guy like Jimmy Carter back in the 70s. I've said this on this show forever and ever and ever, that we have gone back. Inflation, gas prices, stock market in the toilet. I don't give a damn if he passes an Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation hasn't reduced. You know, people put out those things. This is what Biden has done. Inflation Reduction Act. It went up. Next, groceries up 11%. I've talked about this before. Did you know this? Did you know that actually eating out at a restaurant where you don't have to leave a tip is less expensive than going to the store, first time in our country's history? It is more expensive to go to the store to buy chicken than get chicken sandwich from McDonald's. It's unbelievable. Excuse me. It's incredible. Why don't normal people understand this and ask their media? You're not hearing this anywhere but here. Oh, there may be an article, but the mainstream media doesn't care. Doesn't care even a little bit. Doesn't care that BYU that Oregon, the University of Oregon chanted hate at Brigham Young. Doesn't matter that the young lady in the Duke volleyball scandal lied like crazy. It doesn't matter that all of these things are happening in our country. It doesn't matter to our mainstream media. That's why I hate them. I don't dislike them. I hate them. I don't hate things. I'm not a hateful guy. In fact, but I hate what our media has become. I can't stand it. So I make fun of them on a daily basis, and I take the shots that they throw at me, their lies, but I show things like this. Why aren't our most tolerant helping our most needed, our people? Why? Lastly, your energy bill's gone up 7.5%, and oh, by the way, I don't know how you are, but I got a notice that says my energy bill is going to continue to go up. Now, there's an excuse for all of this, and I'm sure much of it goes back to Trump. The answer to this is simple. What about January 6th? Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, okay, great. What about it? What about January 6th? My man says these are low. I live in farming country. Many things have gone down in size and have their prices go up at the same time. This guy says hashtag Democrats are the problem, Biden inflation. He's absolutely right. Like, why don't we talk about this? And why do you subscribe to services that don't talk about this? Like, why do you subscribe? Why do you pay for information from places that don't talk about things that are important? This list right here to all of us. I don't care if you're rich, you're poor, you're middle class. I don't care what you are. These things matter to us. Now, I hear people say, well, the president doesn't control it. The hell he doesn't. This is Biden inflation. Well, Trump did. Yeah, I know what Trump did. He did a hell of a lot better than this. The market was booming. The frickin' gas prices were down. Energy costs were down. You go to the grocery store, it's down. But morons convince young people, oh man, and we all know what happened in that election. And if you don't, you never lived in Maryville, Indiana, or Northwest Indiana, Hammond, East Chicago. You never lived there. If you think voter fraud is such an impossible thing, you never lived there. You don't know the people that I know, one of whom is living in Greece right now because he beat a conviction, didn't beat it, ran out the day before he was sentenced for voter fraud. So just stop with that crap. Sell that to your neighbor. What's going to happen? Vote these people out, every one of them. And I'm not just talking about Biden. I'm talking about all these people that defend him. Voting matters, people. Holy cow. What else do I need to tell you? What else do you need? It is all about us. It is not about keeping some dumbass in freaking office for 50 years so they can look at us and tell us about the long, hard, deathful winter. Man, what is wrong with us? These people aren't for us, you get them out. But Donald Trump was whatever. Was a what? In my world, a great president. In your world, I understand, man. I understand. January 6th, insurrection. Really? I saw cops opening the doors. And if people were actually insurrectionists, put their ass in jail. I got no problem with it. But let's get someone in here that isn't working against us. I went too long on that, but there's the proof in the pudding. Stay right here. I'm on one. I already owe Meg $1 because I said a bad word. That's 3. Be right back.
is the point where I really want to highlight all of the Rangers that are trained shooters are already in the city streets and they're already fighting for their lives. There's a handful of supporters that came over with us. They're part of our unit and they all get the same training, but their primary job are cooks and supply clerks and intel specialists. And when we get notified, hey, you got to go back out there and you got to get to the Durant crash site, it was pretty obvious. We don't have enough guns. So I need more guns. And I just asked all of the supporters, hey, if you've got a gun, would you be willing to jump on the Humvees with me? And every single one of them said, sure. I'll grab my gun. And I'm talking cooks and the ammunition guy. And I call him the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. But they all grabbed their guns and they all jumped on the vehicles. And they all rode back out into the city streets with me. And every one of them knew I may die doing this. But none of them hesitated, not one of them. And they stayed on those vehicles with me all night long, till 9 o'clock the next morning, fighting back and forth. It never let up until I arrived back at the base. The bullets didn't stop flying. But yeah, we fought our way to the Durant crash site. I had a helicopter that was in the air and it was giving me some directions over the radio. But I got into such an intense gunfight that I told the helicopter, man, if I keep driving people through this, I'm going to kill more than we're going to rescue. We need to find another route. And as I was driving around the city to come into the crash site from the back side of the city, I linked up with a bunch of Rangers from my unit that were on vehicles that were totally destroyed, like the dead bodies just hanging off the sides. So we stopped what we were doing and drove those guys back to the base. I came back a second time. And that's when I thought basically we had everybody rounded up, but I learned, no, we're split up all over the city and we can't keep sending these Humvees in there because they're not armored. It's just fiberglass.
Hey, welcome back. Man, I got a bunch for you. I dealt with this one time as a coach, and anytime you hear college or professional athletes give you that crap about, I'm a man. I'm a man. Yeah. Treat me like a man. Yeah. I want you to think about Kenny Golladay of the New York Giants. The New York Giants signed Kenny Golladay to a 4-year, $72 million deal. I'm a man. Okay, you're a man. So Kenny Golladay is playing on a 2-0 team. The Giants are 2-0, which is cause for celebration like everywhere in the New York football world because the Giants, who have historically, since Parcells, since Eli Manning, have stunk lately with a series of bad coaches. Well, they're 2-0. Great comeback win the other day against the Titans. Anyway, so Kenny Golladay is not very happy. But he's a man, right? And this is not what men do. This is what selfish prima donna pains in the ass do. Sign a 4-year, $72 million. He only caught 2 balls in game 1 against the Titans. Then they played against Carolina, and he got reduced playing time. So you know what this man did? He did what every little leaguer and their daddy does. He cleaned out his locker and he left. He was not present for interviews. He cleaned it out and he said, I'm leaving. Oh, all right. He had 0 targets, 0 receptions in game 2. This is a man. These football players, these athletes, they don't know what being a man is. A lot of them do. Some of them don't. Look, huge salary. You pay me 4 years, $72 million. I'll do whatever you want to do. I don't care. And I mean pretty much everything. Anyway, so Galladay says, hey, look, I'm cleaning out my locker. I remember I had this at Indiana when I was the interim coach. You had a kid named Jordan Crawford. You know, wine, bitch, well, the whole deal. So we beat Minnesota. We're 2-1 in my regime. As I'm talking to the team, he's cleaning out his locker. He's not listening. I said, let's all wait for little Jordan here. Little Jordan's throwing a tantrum. Let's wait for little Jordan to clean. He just made fun of him. Little Jordan had all the talent in the world. He got in the NBA for a minute, had a moment or two, but it is what it is. So whenever I hear guys talk about, I'm a man, I think of little Kenny Galladay and his $72 million contract. And I'm sad. You're mean to me. You didn't play me enough. I'm cleaning out my locker. Go. Tell you what. Don't show up. That's what I would say as an NFL head coach. This is absolutely the way it's going to be. Don't show up. Don't show up. I wouldn't tell him, I guess, not to show up, but I would hope he didn't show up. That way we can fine him and get back some of the money. I mean, doesn't that make sense? At some point, and that would be the best thing for Galladay, actually. These guys aren't men, they're children. Absolute freaking children. We have a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem, particularly here in the Midwest, particularly in the great states of Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa, where we love our beer. We don't like beer. We love beer. When Iowa comes in to play Wisconsin or whomever in the Big Ten championship game or in a game here in the city of Indianapolis, they have literally at different times drank our city out of beer. I'm trying to think. I think it was Ohio State against Wisconsin, drank our city out of beer. Literal. I'm not being figurative here. I'm being literal. When Kentucky fans came in a couple years ago with Zion Williamson, beat the living crap out of them in the Crossroads or whatever Champions Classic here in Indianapolis, Kentucky fans got in line for beers at 7 a.m. in downtown pubs. Gainbridge Fieldhouse had to, yes, cut off beer sales in the second quarter because Kentucky fans were fighting each other all over the place out of frustration and out of being drunk. We love beer here in the Midwest. There is a potential beer shortage, and it's because of carbon dioxide. I would argue it's because everything is in a shortage because we have an idiot as a president. A carbon dioxide production shortage caused by natural contamination at the Jackson Dome, a Mississippi River reservoir of CO2 from an extinct volcano, is forcing brewers to cut back. It's become a struggle to keep the doors open, one brewer told Bart Watson, an economist at the Colorado-based Brewers Association. Denver Brewing Company uses reclaimed CO2 and sells extra supplies to a cannabis company. Look, CO2 is important. Beer prices have risen less than the broader food and beverage market, but that could change as the rising cost of inputs, whether it's CO2 or grain, leads to a more expensive pint. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unacceptable. If we ever had a cause to come together and get these people out of our Senate, out of our House, out of our presidency, this is it. Higher beer prices? Are you kidding me? Supply chain problems with CO2 causing a beer shortage? Ladies and gentlemen, I appeal to you. I appeal to your self-worth. This cannot be happening. I say we rise up and we do not allow this to occur. We don't. Please. ladies and gentlemen, let's make damn sure we don't allow a beer shortage to happen. Don't make me go to exclusively vodka and tequila, although I got to tell you, hiatus tequila. The tequila made by the folks that own St. Elmo's is fantastic. It's a nice, soothing drink at the end of the day over a little bit of ice. I'm just saying. To the surprise of nobody, ladies and gentlemen, to the absolute surprise of nobody, people think government is too old, and by big-time margins, they support term limits, age caps, and cognitive tests. Holy cow, are you kidding me? Cognitive tests should be number one. My son Hunter is the smartest guy I've ever been around. Come on, Jack. Term limits, look, let's be honest. We have 41% of people, now this is according to Business Insider, believe political leaders' ages are a problem, a major problem at 41%. 37% say it's a minor problem. Only 10% say no problem at all, and 13% say, oh, hell, I don't know. I don't know. Just 5% of Congress, 5% is under the age of 38. Half of the U.S. population is under the age of 38. A record number, 23% of Congress is over 70. Wow. You got to be 25 years old or older to serve in Congress, or in the House, 30 in the Senate. There's no ceiling. I'm sorry, let me see that. I'm going to read this and you tell me what it means. You must be 25 years old to serve in the U.S. House, 30 in the U.S. Senate, but there's no ceiling. Lawmakers can serve into their 80s, 90s, even 100s. Wow. How about that? People are in favor of max ages for pilots, police officers, judges, Congress, truck drivers, teachers. I don't know about that. Only 40% say teachers. 37 warehouse employees. 31 say there should be a max age for age limits for accountants, and 21% max age for farmers. 79% say pilots. 75% say members of Congress. 71% say federal judges. And 73% say police officers. I mean, my God. 84% would like to see term limits in Congress, in the House. 83% in the Senate. Honest to God, it is amazing that we have let these idiots. 79 years old is how old Joe Biden is. 76 is how old Trump is. And the amazing thing about Trump could say anything, and people asked about his cognitive awareness. We literally have watched Biden say he has cancer. The other day on his 60 Minutes speech, he said so many incoherent things that you went, yeah, okay. All right. I don't know what to tell you. Seriously, I don't know what to tell you. When Biden speaks, hey, it is insanely sad. And I'm not saying this as a guy that hates one side or the other. I say this as a guy that is just simply sad about what is transpiring in our nation. And I don't blame anybody for not getting into politics. Like I said this when I got on this show. This isn't necessarily a political show. But my wife, and I've told you this, said, look, now that you are free to speak politics, watch the hit pieces come. And we saw a major, major hit piece. We did. We saw it. And I laughed at it. September 20th marks an annual nonpartisan civic holiday in the United States in which we encourage voters to check their status. Is that racist? I don't know. Is checking your status racist? I don't know. Seems like everything relative to voting is racist. Don't make people go get an ID. Why not? It's racist. How? I mean, I'm 60 years old. I go to the Kroger. I go to the CVS to buy alcohol. They ask for an ID. They're like, hey, we got to do it. It's a law. But not to vote? What? To get a car, you got to be 25 years old at a rental car, but not to vote? What? I'm too fat and lazy to go get a voter registration ID. Really? Well, that's on you. Don't vote. I don't know what to tell you. Don't vote. I mean, is that difficult? Like, if you're too fat and lazy to go get an ID, then you're probably too fat and lazy to study anything that's actually going on. So don't vote. Like everybody, I don't know if we're hearing it as much. Are we hearing it as much from our NBA heroes about the importance of voting? I know we're taking a day off, but I got to tell you, I would argue this. Actually, I'm going to do this. If any NBA player in Indianapolis starts talking about voting for the current people that are in office, I am going to boycott that team. There's no way in hell that any human being that cares about other human beings in this country can keep these people in office. You just can't do it. So that's what I'm going to do. If any of these 20-something-year-old millionaires tell me that, oh, well, you got to vote. Really? Who do I go? Oh, yeah. Really? I'm boycotting the local team. I am. I don't want to hear from them. Do you? I don't want to hear. Young people got fooled. LeBron and the fellas and everybody fooled. Hey, get out, rock the vote, which means vote Democratic. I got to tell you. If I hear it from one Colt player, I'm boycotting the Colts. I don't want to hear from these goofs. I don't want to hear from the Kenny Galladays of the world. I don't want to hear about guys who, when it doesn't go their way, clean out their locker. That's every NFL guy. I don't want to hear from them. No, I want to study. I want to look. And if you're too fat and lazy to go get an ID, and that can be black or white people. It doesn't have to be just, then don't vote. I mean, if I got to go get an ID and run back to my car to get an ID at 60 years old at a Kroger to buy a bottle of Meoli wine, which I really like, then I think we should all have IDs to go vote. I don't know. Call me crazy. Hey, Dan, you're crazy. I know. All right, let's get it done, baby. Woke a dope. Who's our woke a dope today? I think the whole town of Martha Vineyards. Who's this? Oh, George Takei. What? How did that guy become a guy? Crazy thought, but those 20 million AR-15s now in this country could sure arm a lot of Ukrainians. Thanks for acknowledging the entire reason the Second Amendment is so important, genius. I love Sarah Gonzalez. I do. I absolutely love Sarah Gonzalez. Like George Takei, the only thing I know about George Takei is when they make fun of him on Stern. That's all I got. When they make fun of him on Stern, that's it. That's all we got. George Takei, great, man. Oh, by the way, last night, if you saw this, I did want to, Dane Jackson was a kid playing for the Bills. Dane Jackson, man, they brought the ambulance onto the field last night. Dane Jackson, as an update, has been evaluated, and there's been no major injury to his neck or to his spinal cord, and that is great news. I've always said this about football players. Football players are really tough. I mean, look, you can get injured, you can get hit, you can get paralyzed, you can get killed playing football. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Basketball, I suppose that can happen to you. You go flying, you fall down. I suppose that can happen, right? When basketball players act tough, I giggle. And that's because I'm a basketball player. I don't belly laugh like football guy. I giggle. I do. I giggle. Because, well, basketball players aren't tough. 11 games in, LeBron James is load managing. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to load managing. All right. Also breaking news, and I think this is a good thing, WNBA players are skipping going to Russia. WNBA players don't make jack squat playing in the WNBA. It's all right. But they make a lot playing in Russia. And oh, by the way, President Biden and the rest, Brittany Griner is still there. Brittany Griner has still been locked up. The president is inept. We all know it. You don't know it. Some of you that are on my Twitter handle about whether or not inflation is Biden's fault. Some of you are actually defending this mess. But our weak blank president, Biden, hasn't been able to get Brittany Griner out. So WNBA players are smart. They shouldn't go over there. Why would you go over there? Other than money. You get $1 million, some of them do. Brianna Stewart said, honestly, my time in Russia has been wonderful. But especially with BG, Brittany Griner, still wrongfully detained there, nobody's going to go there until she's home. I think that now many people want to go overseas, and if the money is not much different, they want to be in a better place. Well, you can argue whether Brittany Griner is unlawfully detained. You can do that, all right? You can argue that if you would like. That's up to you. But the truth of the matter is she's being detained far too long for a crime that, let's be honest, is a bit frivolous, at least in our country. I do get the argument that Brittany Griner has to abide by the rules and the laws of Russia when you are in Russia. And I do agree that Brittany Griner was completely idiotic and entitled by even thinking that she could break those laws and came up with an excuse after. But this punishment isn't fitting the crime. And Ms. Griner needs to get out. And our president needs to get off his backside, quit being a politician, and get her out. Along with the Marine that's there as well. It's just the way the world should work. Now, I know a lot of you don't agree with me, but let's be honest. Come on. I mean, let's just say it for what it is. She's there. We have a weak president. She would not be there if Trump was the president. She would have been out. You all don't like it, and I don't care. Last thing, the F the Mormons chant that Oregon made, Oregon actually apologized. Oregon said, hey, look, it was wrong. It wasn't right. Of course it's not right. But of course also our media isn't going to cover it right. My friends at ESPN neglected, I'm reading this here. I'm reading this article here, and I really don't know Chris Lowe. But Chris Lowe, of course, goes into the Duke situation. Never in here does Chris Lowe talk about it being, they said they found no evidence. And of course, they went into it in depth. Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Are you really surprised? Are you really surprised that we haven't heard from any national media, that we haven't heard even a little bit about F you Mormons, F the Mormons? Are you really surprised? Where's Jay Billis? We detest all bigotry. Really? All right. There it is. How we doing with that? I mean, I haven't followed him on Twitter, so I don't know. Where are all these other Dukies that made such a strong statement about detesting bigotry? We never learn. Juicy Smollett, Duke Lacrosse, we never learn. Look, there's nothing wrong with investigating and then condemning. Seems like the responsible thing to do. The aunt of Ms. Richardson, the lady volleyball player for Duke, said every time she served, there were racial slurs. Turned out not to be true. There's nothing wrong with digging into and then commenting on, is it not? That's why when it first came out, I didn't comment on it. People, you got to comment on this. You're a coward. No. I'm not a coward. I have common sense. Let's hear. Let's see. How about we research? And then we make judgments. Remember all the ESPNers and actually the vice president condemning everybody for Juicy Smollett? Any apologies out of there? Of course not. Of course not. Not a chance. That's why nobody, if I don't even know the lady's name on the L, whatever her name is, and the vice president, if these people in those situations aren't going to apologize, I ain't apologizing for nothing. I don't give a damn what you think. Why would anybody apologize for nothing? Current president of the United States talks about how white people are the biggest threat, white supremacy. Really? Okay. Listen to my conversation with Tony Dungy from last Friday. Listen to that conversation and tell me, do you still believe the leader of the free world? It's exhausting. But I'll tell you what isn't exhausting, our show every day, and I thank you. I thank you for being here every day. The YouTube chat, pumping. Numbers today off the chain, yo. And oh, by the way, there's my friends at ESPN with a big advertisement for Dawn Staley, another social media fraud. She's advertising footwear. She's not going to BYU. Protect her team. Is she going to Oregon? I don't know, man. Oh, it pays to be a warrior. It does. But it also pays to sit and listen to a little bit of Dockage in the morning for my daily State of the Union address from 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock every morning. And then, of course, you can catch this greatness. And oh, by the way, were we on one yesterday? Holy cow. Were we on one yesterday on 107.5 The Fan and 93.5? And, of course, you can catch more right here at Outkick.com. Dylan and Ryan and Aaron and Davey and Meg and everybody, thank you for everything. We will talk to you tomorrow. Can't wait. There'll be a lot of stuff happening tonight, and you know we will be addressing it tomorrow. Stay safe, everybody. Don't apologize for nothing.